We're taking you live to Canberra now, where Sussan Ley is speaking. Let's listen in.
And strong, and actually use it in to good effect to support our beef producers and our farmers more broadly, because the agricultural trade between ourselves and China has a long history, a long successful history, and we don't want to see this Prime Minister and this government take a backward step from fighting for it every single day.
Just back on the Bondi issue, have you had any further briefings about how the drafting's going for the new hate speech laws, and will you guarantee that the Coalition will back those when we see them in the next month or so?
Well, I'm never going to back laws that we haven't seen, but what I've said from the beginning is that we will work with the government on stronger laws that deal with hate preaching, radical Islamist hate that morphs into extremism and terror, as we have seen, and that we believe that the Parliament should be recalled early, and every day that the Parliament has not been recalled is actually a day that we should be right here in this building working on strengthening the laws that we know we need in response to this rise in radical Islamist hate that is being preached from some corners of this country, and that has deep and meaningful effects on social cohesion. So the timing of the return of Parliament is always the Prime Minister's to determine, but I have encouraged publicly in many of these stand-ups that Parliament should come back and we should be working on those laws. And we have assisted the Prime Minister and the Labor Party in drafting laws on national security before with respect to the NZYQ cohort, and we're very happy to do that again if there is some reason for the delay. But we believe that this is urgent and necessary, and that Parliament should be recalled urgently to do this important work. But we offer, as we always do with legislation that comes before us on such nationally important matters, to work with the government, but not to take a step back from where we know these national security laws need to land.
We've seen today the release of the 2005 Cabinet Papers. One of those papers shows that the Howard government actually grappled with the fact that the thresholds for listing terrorist organisations in Australia wouldn't capture Hizb ut-Tahrir, and they ultimately decided actually not to change the process for listing organisations. Was that a missed opportunity?
20 years ago, Cabinet Papers are always interesting historical reading, and of course there are lessons we can learn from the past, but what concerns me is what is happening today, not what happened 20 years ago. And the fraying of social cohesion that I and members of my team have been pointing to since the events of October the 7th, 2023 are writ large in the Bondi terrorist attack, in graffiti, in fire bombings, in hate speech that has been allowed to go unchecked, into anti-Semitism that has crept into every corner of our society, and it only underscores the real importance of having a Commonwealth Royal Commission to address these issues.
Were you able to glean at all from Mr Richardson whether he'll be able to seek decisions by ministers or decisions by the National Security Cabinet at all?
Well, those are matters for him and his review, and I will leave it for him to make the necessary comments. My concerns are that his review is not a Commonwealth Royal Commission, doesn't have the powers of a Commonwealth Royal Commission, can't reach into every particular area of society and deal with the escalation of anti-Semitism. That's not in the terms of reference, and it's certainly not in the remit. Thank you.
The opposition leader there answering questions on proposed government hate speech laws. Sussan Ley says she hasn't seen the draft legislation yet, so she can't make specific comments on that. She also renewed calls to recall Parliament early after the Bondi terror attack. She continues, of course, to push for that federal Royal Commission, and we'll continue talking about that this afternoon. At the start there, she also briefly touched on new tariffs on beef from China. This is big news this afternoon, and added 55% on imports that exceed a quota. We'll also bring you more on that from the Australian Meat Industry Council as well.